So all the information we're gonna cover today, it can be found in the NGA, the Notice of Grant Availability, as well as the supporting documents and attachments that we have on the grants website on the labor and industry page. But there were a few things that are a little bit different about this year's program that we wanted to highlight as well. I think folks that have dug into the package a little bit will notice that we have a little bit lengthier of time for you to put together all your application materials. Typically, we do about 30 days, and I think we're looking at approximately a 2-month posting for this one. Just to give everyone, some things are new, so we want to make sure that folks have the opportunity to put in the best applications that they possibly can. So if you can hop on to the next slide, Shauna. So some of the basics: what is an industry partnership? This is a strategic approach we take in Pennsylvania to try and align education, workforce development, and economic development initiatives within your regions. So we want to see coordination and alignment across public programs, services, and funding. We really want to see interagency and cross-sector collaboration. One of the best things about industry partnerships is their ability to pool in resources that from multiple places to support the priorities that are identified by the partnership. And what we really want to see are better outcomes for Pennsylvania students, workers, businesses, and the communities that we all live in. So partnerships are a group of businesses from the same industry sector working together to address the overall competitiveness of the industry. Partnerships focus on priorities and challenges identified by businesses. And again, we want these to benefit workers, students, businesses, and the broader community. So some of the goals for the IP program are to improve the coordination and alignment of economic development, education, workforce development, services, and funding to better engage businesses in key industries. And these are the industries that you all represent. These are going to be a priority within your region that we want to support because they help to make your local economies thrive and your communities thrive. We want to address the workforce and economic development needs. And we do that by creating economies of scale and focusing on demand-driven needs, continuous improvement of the industry sector, and coordination of all efforts. And so a goal we have too is increase the number of partnerships we have at the local, regional, and state level, representing industries across Pennsylvania that you all deem important. So on here we have some key deadlines and details. We have $4 million available for the grant program this year. The maximum award for each partnership is going to be $250,000. I do not believe we put a floor on the funding amounts. So if you want to apply or for a smaller amount than $250,000, that is acceptable, but we are capping awards at $250,000 to make sure that we're able to support as many partnerships as possible. All applications are due at 4 p.m. on October 22nd. Again, we posted this at the beginning of last week, so that's almost 2 full months to put together the materials. We want to see all partnerships align with the industry partnership framework principles and funding priorities. And then we need you to adhere to the industry partnership model, which is Appendix A in the application materials. The next slide goes over allowable activities. Again, these materials, this webinar as well as this PowerPoint will be posted online for y'all to access. So I'm not going to read through every one of these, but keep in mind these are suggestions and things that we have funded in the past. This is not necessarily an exhaustive list. So there's a lot of things you can do with the industry partnership money. Key things to keep in mind are the things that you can never use government grant money for. We're not going to pay for alcohol and things like that. But we're pretty flexible in supporting the needs that the industry partnership or your industry partnerships determine to be the most critical and in need of support.
James, if I can just hop in right there, that
Please.
the activities can go for the convening of the partnership and the expenses that go into the forming of your partnership, as well as the action items that your partnership has laid out in your action plan that you want to pursue.
Thank you for that, Gwen. I appreciate that that clarification. If you want to hop to the next slide, Shauna. So things that we need to see from you with respect to your budgets. You need to submit the budget template that's provided for all of the expenses associated with the application and the program. And this is important too. We want to make sure that there is a corresponding narrative to each item that shows up on that budget template. So we're looking for details about what that expense is going to pay for, as well as quantity and cost of each line item in the budget. We are capping administrative costs for the grant at 10%. And something in Pennsylvania law with respect to private sector match, we need you to detail at least at a minimum 25% private sector match. Please note in the past that we have called this a private sector cash match. We are not requiring it to be cash this year. This can be in-kind contributions, but this really is important because it demonstrates buy-in from the businesses within the partnership and the other partners within your partnership. And as we like to say, that it shows some skin in the game. So if you can hop to the next slide, Shauna. So these are going to be the 100 points that are available to your partnership's application and how it's going to be scored. Again, all this stuff is in the NGA, but we wanted to highlight it today. You're going to need a statement of need and a project goal. And we're really looking this year, and this is spelled out in the NGA, to demonstrate with data why it's critical to invest in this industry within your region. Sure, Susan, I will, I'll tell you what, I can respond to that now. For those of you that may not have access to the chat, the question was some examples of an in-kind contribution. In-kind contributions, we've seen things in the past of facility space for partnership meetings. We've also seen donations of time for partnership operations, like if an individual that works for one of the businesses in your partnership spends time that otherwise would have been paid work for that company that's being used to support partnership activities, we'll count that as an in-kind contribution as well. And in the FAQ document, I think we can put in some additional examples of other types of in-kind contributions that have been used in the past. Does that address your question?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. So the next 15 points on the application are going to be, I'm sorry, Rory has a question here. What qualifies as the remaining 75% match? This is probably different than other years. The only required matching element is the 25% total match. That's something that occurs in the statute that allows us to get the funding for industry partnerships. But we would certainly are not going to be upset to see on these applications if folks are able to bring in matching funds above the 25%. Certainly something we'd love to see, but there is no requirement above the 25% this year. Does that address what you're asking, Rory? Okay, perfect. So again, we'll go to the next section of the application is project design and management plan. This is exactly what it sounds like. Um, excuse me, this is where you tell us what you're going to do with the money. The next one on here is data collection and performance outcomes. This is a place where we put some increased scrutiny on this year and on what we would like to see. You need to really and clearly spell out how you're going to collect information on the outcomes related to partnership activities. And the grant goes into some detail differentiating between what an output and an outcome is. And in this section, we're looking for you to give us information on what success looks like, how you're going to collect and document the information that shows your partnership is successful, and the desirable outcomes of your partnership activities. The next section on here, which is really new, this has to do with some work that's been done by the Workforce Development Board and some other partners in the Commonwealth. We really want to get better about evidence building and measuring and evaluating effectiveness of the partnership. This section, you're going to talk about your plan to increase the partnership's ability to collect evidence and demonstrate efficacy of the activities. And really, in simplest terms, we're looking for how you're going to build upon your ability to show a return on the public investment in the partnership. The next piece on here is an equity strategy. We're going to go into a little bit more detail on this piece. This is new as well, but we have another slide for that coming up. If you want to, I'll get to this one in a second, Shauna, if you want to back up real quick, and thank you. The next one is stakeholder engagement. One of the key things, we've opened up the funding opportunity to a lot of organizations that are outlined within the NGA. Oftentimes, historically, with the industry partnerships, we required the workforce development boards to be the lead applicant. That is no longer the case. Lots of other organizations are eligible to apply, but under Pennsylvania law, you do need to demonstrate engagement with the local workforce development board in the region where your partnership is going to be operating. The next one in here is leveraging resources and sustainability. The leveraging resources, I think you're going to get into some of those matching discussions, but we're also going to talk about how resources can be brought in to support the partnership from different places outside of just simply the state funding. And then sustainability is how you intend to keep the partnership operating in the future. Funding is never a guarantee, but we know even in years where there wasn't funding, partnerships have continued to do really positive work. So while we always hope to be able to provide these types of grant opportunities, we really want to see what the vision is for maintaining the partnership in perpetuity. And then the last scoring criteria has to do with the budget forms and justifications. And I think we covered that a little bit on an earlier slide. So if you want to hop to the next one, Shauna. This is new, and this is a place where we thought that we would get some questions, and we have gotten some questions from other spaces. We really want to see a demonstrated equity strategy for the partnership. I think many folks have probably seen the graphic that's up on the screen now, demonstrating the difference between equity and equality. One of the things that workforce development has really focused on in recent years is making sure we're meeting folks where they are at in order to give people the resources in order to be successful. One of the things you'll notice in the grant materials is we're looking for an equity strategy around both workers and businesses. For workers, it's a plan to reach harder to serve individuals for the opportunities within the businesses in the partnership. As far as business equity, we want to see a plan to make sure that there are different types of businesses represented in the partnership. We want these partnerships to grow. And one of the most important ways we want to see that growth is by recruiting businesses that are female, minority owned, to really get a quality and diverse representation of the businesses within a sector. So if you can hop on to the next slide, Shauna. Again, this is all spelled out in the NGA, but want to cover it. These are the required application elements that you need to submit to Pennsylvania and at the resource account that's identified in the application materials. But we need your application narrative. This is capped at 10 pages. There's an application form, a budget form, the budget narrative that corresponds to the budget form, your partnership form. There's a document, a template for a training plan, if that's something that is an identified priority of your partnership. Not all partnerships request funding for training, but if you do, we need to see that training plan. And the last piece on here is letter. And when I saw your question come up, I'll get to that in 1 second. Letters of support. We want to see letters of support from workforce development, education, and economic development. And I will say something that we're requesting this year that's a little bit different in years past. We're not looking for boilerplate letters of support. We want the letter to really speak to how the person who's submitting the letter plans to specifically support the project and why they're supporting it and what they hope to gain out of it. I'll hop on to the question that just came in. For those of you that don't have the chat, would providing workforce assistance to Philadelphia's newly welcome and refugees fall under the equity and recruitment category? Yes, it would. And then a question from Barbara. Are the waivers from PY 2019 going to be approved? I will answer that, not necessarily related to the NGA, but those, I believe, got delayed a little bit on the submission to the budget office, but the plan is going to, that those should be approved and that money will be able to open back up. And then I think we can hop on to the next slide. So again, this is the deadline, October 22nd at 4 p.m. That's a hard stop. So please, I would not recommend delaying to the last minute. You can obviously submit your materials ahead of time, but that is the end date for when we're accepting applications, and that is the website ra-pawdb-ip@pa.gov. Again, that is on both the website and in the NGA materials. The next slide on here has questions. This is the same resource account. If you have questions, to submit them. And as I mentioned before, any questions that we do get in there, we will put up on the FAQ site and answer those so that everybody has access to the same information. And before I wrap up, I do want to see if either Gwen or Shauna, if you want to throw it in the chat, anything that you wanted to share before we open up for questions.
No, I just want to say I'm excited to see all the work that everyone has going on in their regions and what their plans are for the regions, especially as we are in the process of the recovery from the pandemic. I'm sure there's a lot of great initiatives going on out there. And as James mentioned, any questions, please let us know, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Gwen. We did have another question come in from Susan. Can they be mixed sectors, or is the preference to stick with one sector only? This is a really good question. And the answer is it really depends on what you can demonstrate with the data. One of the things that we've always focused on was supporting industry partnerships, and why they make sense to us is it allows businesses within the same supply chain to connect and work together. So as long as you can demonstrate that those businesses that you're grouping as your sector for your partnership have clear ties and are interrelated, I don't think that there's any issue with that at all. Like, for example, if somebody wanted to do a partnership with the logistics companies and manufacturers that need to utilize the logistics companies, that's actually what we're looking to see.
I think, James, if I can just piggyback on that, the three bears kind of approach has always been how we looked at these. Nothing that's too big and too wide that just doesn't have any true meaning to any of the businesses involved, but nothing so small and finite that your work can't continue in some sector, but just finding that middle ground where you're meeting the needs of those businesses in the industry and everyone is being able to participate.
Thank you, Gwen. I think that's really well put. And then also from Susan, we have a workforce alliance comprised of a network of service providers. Again, if they have interrelated needs for like a shared workforce or a shared supply chain, I think that really, without knowing a ton of details there, I think that makes sense. We really, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said perfect. It sounds like it's a little bit more wider scope than I had thought of.
You know, the big elements that, you know, shared supply chains, shared labor pools, if it makes sense for the businesses to work cooperatively to solve challenges that impact all of them together, I mean, that's really hitting the nail on the head with what we're looking to support.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, Samantha has a question, and it is, yeah, okay. That's a very, that was probably a typo on our part. And several of us, for those of you that don't know, it says on page 8 of the notice of grant availability, all closeout final reports should be submitted no later than September 1st, 2021, which is today. So we will post a notice. We will update that document and post a note online with that. It goes to show you, I think we had about a dozen set of eyes on the materials before they went out. We all missed that one, so good catch, and we will correct that. Any other questions from folks today?
James, is there an audit requirement if you're over $100,000 for the grant?
We have fiscal controls. I don't know that I've heard them necessarily called an audit. A lot of that, if you're awarded, will be spelled out in the terms and conditions that come with the notice of award. And then another question from
oh my
Ellen.
God, Ellen. Yes, they're required.
I may have missed this, but supporting letters from employers and affiliates, are they required and do they help? So the only letters that we are requiring are those 3 dedicated partners, economic development, workforce development, and education. However, if there are businesses that want to write letters of support, I think that is helpful. Again, just make sure that they are specific to the partnership activities in the proposal. We have a question on here from Eric. Allowable uses mention procuring consulting technical assistance, but there is no mention of hiring a person to facilitate these partnerships. Eric, and we'll put this, we'll put a clarifying answer in the FAQ document on this one, but for the person doing the facilitation, that is an allowable cost. Again, that's why we went with including but not limited to. If you want to bring in outside facilitation for partnership meetings, that is something that we will provide funding for. Oh, and you're very welcome, and I'm glad you asked that question. We've had partnerships that sometimes handle the facilitation on their own. We've also found that partnerships that do bring in an outside individual to do that facilitation have been successful as well. Every partnership's different, so just make sure you're explaining what you'd like funding for and how it's going to be beneficial to you. Any other questions from folks? Uh, uh, we have two more questions came in. The first is from Barbara. Will we be required to cite specific studies that demonstrate successful project models? I will say that because this is a little bit newer this year, there's going to be some flexibility on how you can do that. But I think if you are able to cite specific studies that demonstrate successful models, I think that's incredibly beneficial. I hesitate to use the word require, but it is definitely something that if you can do so would be helpful to your application. So if economic development is the applicant, how do you handle the letter? That came from Deborah. If economic development is the lead applicant, I would just recommend including a letter from the applicant as well. Similar to how a workforce development board would demonstrate a letter of support from individuals within that organization. I think it goes without saying that the applicant obviously supports the project, but just make sure all your boxes are checked on that one. Do you have something you wanted to add on that one, Gwen?
I would just say for any of the applicants who may be one of these three main partners who a match letter is required of, similar to what James said before. Why do you feel the need to start up this partnership or continue the work, or, what kind of is behind it? That would be, what you would include if you are the applicant and you are either from economic development, workforce development, or education.
Perfect. Thank you, Gwen. Any other questions from folks today? Can they be from industry studies or must they be from CLEAR? Barbara, that's a good question. No, any type of supporting studies, I think are fine. If they're industry funded studies, would we love to see pure academic research? That would be awesome, but not probably the gold standard, but that's not a requirement that they be, so they can be industry funded studies. And then we had another question for Rory. Is CWDS trainee data entry required for incumbent worker training? That is a yes. That goes to the focus of the evidence building and the evaluation. We want to be able to follow folks, at least in the aggregate, by matching them to wage records and things like that to see what their employment outcomes if the training is supported by the industry partnership money. Quite welcome. And any other questions from folks? Okay, well, I will once again reiterate that if you do have questions, please send them to the resource account. We will put them on the FAQ page so that everybody has access to those answers. I would certainly recommend keeping an eye out for that document, as it will be continuously updated as questions come in. And in response to the questions that we've had here today, I also want to apologize again. I think it would have been much nicer for you all if you would have enjoyed hearing from Shauna a little bit more than me today, but we make things work. And I want to say thank you to Shauna and Gwen for all the work that they do in supporting all of the partnerships in Pennsylvania. I'll pause one more time to see if there are any additional questions, or otherwise we can give you about a half hour back in your day. All right, well, in that case, I wish everyone the best of luck in putting together your applications. I'm really looking forward to seeing what we receive this year. Any closing thoughts from you, Gwen?
No, I'd just like to echo that. I'm really excited. It's been great to be able to continue to be a part of the industry partnership work being done at the Workforce Development Board. From the economic development side, it gives me a chance to see even closer what is going on at the local level and all the work that our agencies are doing there as well. So we appreciate everything that you do and looking forward to working with you.
James, I do have one question, totally unrelated. I just wanted to squeeze it in if I could. Have you released the annual reports for those partnerships that are currently funded? Or will they be coming out soon?
They will be coming out soon. I think we're just wrapping up the instructions for those. I would expect something very soon, Barbara.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right, thank you everyone for taking the time. We certainly appreciate your interest in the program. And once again, good luck with your applications and everybody have a great day.